Let's bring in the man himself, Bill Maher, also the host of Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO. We should, of course, note CNN, HBO, both owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. Bill, congratulations on the special. So early on, you say that Trump, quote, got the White House again, but he isn't going to get your mind. There are probably a lot of viewers that want to hear what you mean by that and how you want to achieve that.
So I'm not going to chase every rabbit down the hole like I did the first term. You know, that's what I mean about he's not going to get my mind. He's a kooky guy who says a lot of kooky things, and I'm just not going to pre-hate anything. I'm just going to hope for the best, and then when something serious happens, I'll comment on that. Otherwise, I have new rules and monologue as a place in the show every week to talk about invading Greenland and annexing Canada and other stuff that's perfect for comedy, but I'm not going to take it seriously.
What's up, folks? Welcome back to the channel, where we break down the chaos of politics with a side of humor and a whole lot of honesty. Today, we're diving into something that caught my eye, and honestly, it's classic Bill Maher. The veteran comedian and political firestarter is making headlines again, this time not for one of his scathing monologues, but for the way he's planning to handle Donald Trump if the former president manages to snatch a second term in the White House. And let me tell you, Maher's approach, it's a whole vibe. Now, if you remember Maher during Trump's first term, he was practically a one-man resistance movement, chasing down every insane press conference, every late-night tweet, every headline that made the rest of us question reality. But this time around, he's flipping the script. Maher says Trump won't get his mind again. He's done being mentally hijacked by every outrageous moment. Instead of reacting to every bizarre claim or political circus act, Maher's drawing a line. He'll still be doing what he does best, sharp, timely satire, but only when it's worth it. No more letting Trump live rent-free in his head. Let me know what you think. Has Maher got the right idea here, or is this just wishful thinking in a world that keeps getting weirder by the minute? Drop a comment, smash that like button, and let's get into it.
You told me a couple years ago on air that you were afraid of what Trump could theoretically do if he ever were returned to the White House. How do you feel now?
Yeah, it's possible. Do I think he's going to start arresting comedians? I don't, but it's possible. Look, anything's possible with this guy. I'll put it this way. When George Bush was in the White House, it never even entered my mind. Never entered my mind that I couldn't say whatever I wanted to say without repercussions. And that's one of the great things about living in America. And we take America for granted and that kind of stuff. And maybe we can't anymore. So we'll see. But am I going to let it affect what I do? No. I mean, the day I feel like I can't say what I want without going to Guantanamo Bay, I'll just leave.
All right, let's talk about something that hits a little deeper than punchlines, free speech. Because in his latest sit-down, Bill Maher didn't just joke around about Trump's potential comeback. He got real. Real enough to admit that, yeah, the idea of Trump returning to the White House raises serious questions about what comedians, commentators, and everyday Americans can actually say without looking over their shoulders. Now, Maher's no stranger to controversy. He's made a career out of saying the things polite society avoids at dinner. But even he is drawing a line in the sand when it comes to Trump. 2. He straight up said that during George W. Bush's presidency, he never once felt like his freedom to speak was under threat. And if you remember the Bush years, Maher torched that administration on the regular, but he never feared he'd be punished for it. That's a big statement. Fast forward to Trump, and suddenly that same confidence isn't there. Maher doesn't think comedians will be thrown into Guantanamo Bay anytime soon, but the vibe is different. You can feel the tension, the uncertainty. Like, yeah, maybe you can still speak freely, but will it come with a cost? Will the outrage machine come after you harder? Will government pressure on media and the culture of intimidation go up another notch? That's the fear, and Maher isn't sugarcoating it.
So I'm writing an election book, and one of the things I just stumbled on was a monologue you gave in October 2023, in which you warned the Democratic Party of Ruth Bader Biden. You were saying the American people think he's too old. You're worried about this. You had a great line about it doesn't matter if he's a national treasure and has done great things. If you got on an airplane and you heard that Buzz Aldrin was the pilot, you'd get off. I'm sorry for botching your very funny joke. But they didn't listen to you, but you were proven correct.
Yeah, and I felt I had standing to make that case because I had for so many years been the only person I know on television who was consistently railing against ageism. I have been saying for years, ageism is the last allowable prejudice that we can have in this country. You can always do the age jokes. You can always rail on people for being too old. And it was, as I said, a case-by-case basis. Some people at 70 act like they're 100 years old, and some people are like 40-year-olds. But this was a case, okay, where Biden was too old. Having made that case that it's a case-by-case basis, I was now saying, yes, some of those cases are that the person just is too old for the job. And he was going to be, much like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, someone who was seen in history as one who stayed at the fair too long and cost his party dearly. And he did. And, you know, I don't think history is going to treat Joe Biden kindly for doing that.
Donald Trump has spent a lot of time criticizing you.
Now, Maher has always had a complicated relationship with political correctness and progressive orthodoxy. But this time, he pulled out a brutal comparison. He said, Biden is basically the Ruth Bader Ginsburg of the executive branch. And no, that's not a compliment. According to Maher, both of them stuck around too long, ignored the signs, and ended up hurting the very causes they dedicated their lives to. Ouch. But here's where it gets interesting. Maher isn't just some young guy throwing age jokes. He's actually been one of the few voices on TV consistently calling out ageism. It's fair not ageism. He's defended older Americans for years, saying age alone should disqualify someone from holding office. But now, he's flipping the script. Maher says Biden is the exception to that rule. He's not saying old people shouldn't lead. He's saying this old person shouldn't have. And the real kicker? He thinks the Democrats knew it. They saw the red flags, Biden's verbal stumbles, the energy level, the optics, and they ignored them. They doubled down, and now Maher believes history is going to be brutal. He sees Biden's re-election run not as noble, but as a misstep that could cost the Democratic Party big time. He basically frames it as a slow-motion political cell phone, and if the consequences play out the way he fears, it'll be one for the history books, and not in a good way.
I do want to ask you before you go, and congratulations again on the special, but there's talk promulgated by you about maybe you quitting the HBO show, about maybe not touring anymore. Well, you said something to Jane Fonda about thinking about that. Where are you in your career? You still got a lot of good stand-up, a lot of good jokes in you, right? Like, tell us what's next.
Okay. I am stopping doing stand-up just because I'm tired of touring, just because I've been doing it for 40 years. I love it. Look, I love nothing more than being on stage somewhere telling jokes to strangers. It's been my entire life. It's been the most consistent thing in my life. But for those people who say to me, why don't you just do it a little bit? You can't do it a little bit. Stand-up is like being a boxer. You have to be in training. You can't just walk up there and do it. So I've been in training for 40 years. I need a break. And I'm tired of the travel. I'm tired of dragging my ass out of bed on Saturday morning to go to some place after I worked so hard on Real Time all week. Maybe I'll go back to it. But, you know, I have a podcast. I have a television show. I'm not retiring. And I don't know where this started about I'm getting rid of Real Time. They're going to have to drag me off of that show. What I was saying was that I didn't want to do another Trump term, not just because I don't think it's going to be possibly a great time for America, maybe, again, not going to pre-hate anything, but because I've already done all the jokes about Donald Trump. I don't know what else to say about the guy. But, of course, he will provide us with a lot of new material, and I'll get into it. But I was hoping that in the episodic television show that is America. I was hoping for some new characters.
So let's wrap this up with a look at Bill Maher's big picture vibe, and honestly, it's something a lot of us are probably feeling right now. Straight up political burnout. Especially when it comes to comedy and the never-ending reality show that is Donald J. Trump. Maher laid it out plain and simple. He's tired of Trump jokes. Not because he's suddenly gone soft, but because he's been there, done that, roasted it, and moved on. The guy's been milking the Trump circus for punchlines since 2015, and at this point he's like, what else is there to say? And you can feel the exhaustion in his voice, not just as a comedian, but as someone who's watched the same script play out over and over again. But here's the twist, he knows Trump will still give him material. It's not like the madness is going to stop. Trump being Trump means there will always be something absurd, chaotic, or downright disturbing to riff on. Maher's not denying that. But what he's really craving, new characters, new dynamics, a fresh cast in the political arena. He dropped a perfect metaphor. It's like rebooting an old TV show, and instead of bringing in new talent, you just drag the original actors out of retirement. Maher said it's like rebooting Matlock, but still casting Andy Griffith instead of someone new. Like, come on, how many reruns do we need before we finally cancel the season? And that's the deeper point here. Maher isn't just over Trump, he's over the stale state of American politics. The same faces, the same fights, the same headlines recycled every election cycle. As a comedian, that's frustrating. But as a citizen, it's kind of depressing. We need new ideas, new energy, new people. And until we get that, it's just the same old sitcom playing in a loop. So I'll throw it to you. Are you tired of the political reruns, or do you think we still need those familiar characters to finish their arcs? Should we reboot with fresh faces, or just brace ourselves for another season of Trump versus Biden round 2? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you feel the fatigue too, and make sure to subscribe for more no BS takes on comedy, politics, and everything in between. Thanks for watching.